What's up, everybody? This is Grant at Cause Artist. Welcome to another episode of the Disruptors for Good podcast. Today, we are going to chat with Carrie Rich, co founder and CEO of the Global Good Fund. And it's a pretty incredible story of how the Global Good Fund started. As Carrie tells the long form of the story, I'll tell the quick part of it is that it really started with one email that she sent out to a lot of her friends, colleagues, and family, and got an incredible response back. And the fund raised $2 million through that one email. So it was obviously an insane time and just an unexpected jolt of motivation into what her dream was. Her dream was to start a fund that sort of allocated coaching and capital to social entrepreneurs around the world, specifically in the healthcare space, but also specifically in the developing countries where technology and entrepreneurship has not yet sort of been a bedrock of the community yet. So at this point now, they are putting capital into not only healthcare, but across all business sectors. She comes from a healthcare background, which her profession is from being in the healthcare sector. So she's very familiar with that. But then she's also obviously expanded into a bunch of other knowledge bases as she's onboarded, advised hundreds of social entrepreneurs over the past nearly decade now of the Global Good Fund and its sort of advancement in the social impact sector. And as I told her in the interview, it's great to see investors getting into the realm of social impact investing because that's obviously where we grow. When capital is injected into ideas that have a tremendous impact potential behind them, that's how we solve a lot of our problems. So, really great conversation. I hope you guys enjoy it. Before we get into the interview, just like to touch on the new podcast by Zach, who just sort of joined Cause Artist in his show called The Impact Studio. He's got some tremendous guests coming on. So if you get a chance, subscribe to that. I might pop one of his episodes in this stream this week so you can get a little taste of what it sounds like. And also Jasmine, who's been doing Impact India for the last couple of years. She's started on season 3 of that. It'll be some pretty cool things coming out through the audio sector. We are planning to do some Instagram live interviews as well. So if you want to be a part in that, just reach out to me either on Instagram, the Cause Artist Instagram, or just Grant at causeartist.com. So that should be pretty cool and fun. Also want to touch on Impact Recipe again. It's just my sort of dev company inside of Cause Artist where I provide, if you're working with me, high-end sort of web development and design for social enterprises, nonprofits, impact investors, and other social ventures. Really want to give an affordable opportunity to social impact individuals, across the world. So you'll check out impactrecipe.com to learn a little bit more about that. But it's no upfront cost at all for the design and development. You just pay a monthly fee to be a member and to get sort of unlimited updates and maintenance and optimization of the site, things like that. So a lot of the skills that I've learned over the last decade, I put into your web presence, which is the most important thing we have. If you want to learn more about that, just impactrecipe.com or hit me up, just Grant at causeartist.com. But again, hope everybody's doing well and staying safe and enjoy the week. Thanks. Bye. So how I like to start these usually is just about the person's journey on starting their company or their business or their nonprofit or their venture. Really, just kind of starting their what I look at as somebody's like life's work, right? And I think that what you're doing at the Global Good Fund, I think it's sort of this amalgamation of everything you've sort of done in your life and your career has kind of led to this. So let's kind of go back in time a little bit and talk about that journey to become sort of co-founder and CEO.
Yes, I wake up every day feeling like the Global Good Fund is my life's work. And I've always had an interest in helping people. I imagine a lot of people feel that way. And for me, that started in healthcare. So I had
Mm-hmm.
gone to graduate school for health administration and got a dream job working at a healthcare organization in Virginia. And it's a multi-billion dollar organization that did everything healthcare related you can think of, from hospitals to seeing cancer patients to long-term care for the elderly, everything you can think of. And I
Mhm.
just loved it. I got to see people at their highest highs and lowest lows and everything in between and really be there for people. And for me, it was a dream also because I got to work for the CEO of the whole organization. And I went to him one day and I said, "This is amazing that I get to work for you. I am so privileged. I mean, how many people out there
Right.
work really hard, have hearts of gold, but don't get the same platform I get because they don't get to work for the CEO?" And, he had invested in me, he'd sponsored me and pulled me up, and he was grooming me for a leadership role. And I was fortunate because I got to work for him. And I thought, what if we could find other young people like me who have strong work ethics, strong moral compass, but don't have a ton of experience, and pair them with people like you who have a ton of experience, can help us avoid some mistakes and replicate successes and create our own path forward. And we could combine those two communities as a catalyst for social good. What if we could do that? And my boss at the time looked at me and said, "It's a really nice idea. Could you please go back to doing your job?" So I hung my head, went back to my office, and I was 25 years old, and for my 26th birthday, he gave me a card a couple months later. And inside the card was $100. And he said, "This is the money I would have spent taking you and your colleagues to pizza lunch for your birthday. Now you
Nice.
can go live out this idea." And
That was
on
your
the
that
left,
was your seed money. That was your seed
that was
money.
a seed funding. That's right. And on the left side of the card was a quotation by a person named Jonathan Wesley that said something to the effect of, "Do all the good you can in all the ways you can by all the people you can, so long as you ever can." And that what I took away from the quote was, do good. And so I wrote an email to my friends and family, and I'm thinking, what can you do with $100? It doesn't get you particularly far these days. And so I wrote this email and I said, "My boss gave me some lunch money. I'd like to give the money to a few groups that I volunteered with in the past. So if you could each donate a little bit, maybe it would add up to a lot." And my goal was to raise $6,000 for 6 organizations, give $1,000 each, and call it a day. And I wrote to my friends and family and realized, 25, 26 years old, none of my friends had money. And how was I going to get to $6,000? So I
Mhm.
went through my email account and typed the letter A, and whoever's email address auto-populated, I hit enter, added them to the distribution. A, B, C,
Yep.
every single name I'd ever communicated with in the blind copy section. And then, of course, you need a subject heading for an email. So I chose Global Good Fund, inspired by the quotation in the birthday card. And fast forward 2 weeks later, we had raised $2 million. My boss got heavily involved himself philanthropically, and a community of young people each contributed a little bit, and
Hmm.
it added up to a whole lot. And that's how the Global Good
Wow.
Fund was born. And that was 7, 8 years ago now. And we're now working in more than 30 countries, serving social entrepreneurs and their leadership development all over the world.
So when that happened, did you quit your job? Like, what was it? Because your boss was like, "Go," I'm sure he was kind of, joking in a way, right? But also like, kind of follow it. But it'll be a while before, probably years before you could really succeed and kind of do this. So was it like right when you raised that? Did you say, "I gotta go do this"? I'm sorry.
I did not quit my job right away. Honestly, I just spent all this money and time studying to get right where I was. And I loved my job in healthcare. I mean, I thought I was contributing to making the world a better place, and I was in some small way. I was, and I still feel that way. But what I realized at the time was that the real way to create a healthier world is to make sure that people get educated and have income and create
Hmm.
their own opportunities, create a more environmentally friendly, sustainable world, and create a more equitable society. And so I didn't know exactly how to do that, other than what I had been trained in, which was healthcare. And so what I did was, first of all, I had no idea what to do with $2
Right.
million. I had dreamed of the day when someone would give me $1 million, but it never dawned on me that someone would give $2 million to an organization that didn't exist. I mean, this was a
Hmm.
subject heading on an email. There was no organization. I hadn't set out with the intention of creating an organization. I had set out with the mission of helping other people like me who cared about creating a better world and finding resources in both financial resources and human resources to help them. And so we started by doing that. We started by finding these amazing young people truly all over the world. We use social media. For the first year, I didn't join Global Good Fund as an employee, and we created an advisory board. And
Hmm.
these were really amazing people who were friends of my boss at the time and the co-founder of the Global Good Fund, Knox Singleton. And he would, invite his peers to participate. And these were people, again, running multi-billion-dollar companies who their time is not for sale. And so they would give their time to mentor young people. And that was the most precious gift. Their gift of time was the most precious gift we could possibly have. And so my time was just nights and weekends, and we kept the money and we opened a bank account and
Hmm.
that's where we started. And eventually we created, we had a board and filed for a nonprofit status. And eventually the board said, are you going to do this full time, or are we going to find someone else to
Right.
lead? And so that's when I thought, healthcare will always be there. This opportunity may not be. It's time to take a leap of faith and go for
And
it.
how long was that after you raised the 2 million? Was it a couple years later?
No, it was within the first year, about a year in, and I had been volunteering. I would find volunteers who were really dedicated, and what I learned was, for example, I found a volunteer, someone I'd been volunteering with. We met on the back of a pickup truck in Haiti doing community service, and this person
Hmm.
was really high leader in the military and had run a large company. And what would take me 3 weeks to figure out, he could figure out in 3 days or 3 hours. And so we had these amazing volunteers for the first 6 months to a year before I needed to commit full time. And I actually, I had a hard time taking a salary because for me that
Right.
was money that could be spent on other people. And I was privileged to have this platform and a great job, and other people didn't have the same opportunity. So it took a while for me to take that leap of faith. But once I did, I wake up every morning really excited to make the world a better place through the Global Good Fund.
So was it initially focusing on healthcare startups and healthcare like entrepreneurs trying to solve certain issues in that sector, or did it not matter? It was just whoever's has awesome ideas and it's an amazing person.
The latter, yeah. From
Yeah.
the beginning, we decided to be industry agnostic and geographically agnostic. We believe that our theory here is that if you invest in a high potential young leader, that leader will in turn grow in a business that will positively impact the world.
Hmm.
And it takes all kinds of positive impact to make the world a better place. It can't just be about healthcare. We have to create job opportunities for people in underrepresented communities. We need to have equal access to health and education. We need to have clear air to breathe. We need to have equitable access to nutritious food. I mean, it wasn't just one thing to make the world a better place. We needed it all. And I knew I couldn't do that, but we could find a lot of young people who together could make a difference. And so from the beginning, we didn't narrow ourselves. Our common theme was finding individuals who we could support through their leadership development who are committed to social entrepreneurship. That was
Hmm.
the horizontal that cut through it all.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about like sort of when a person, whether it applies or you seek out, what is sort of the process like? Do you just, is it capital? Is it advisory? Is it resources? What does the person or, company actually get? And then is it sort of like a 6 month program? Is it you're a lifer? If you, are you involved? Like
Yeah.
how does the whole process sort of work going from choosing an applicant to actually, dedicating time and resources to them?
Sure. So the way we find these entrepreneurs is largely through social media.
Hmm.
So as long as you have access to the internet and can speak English, which is it's a barrier for a lot of people all over the world,
Sure.
having access to the internet and be don't need to be a native English speaker, but can speak English, then the access is open. And so we post an open application process online. It's free to apply in the springtime. And so we'll actually be posting to the Global Good Fund very soon. And everyone anywhere in the world can apply if they're interested. And what we're looking for are people under 40, so they have a long time horizon to positively impact the world, who have already committed. They've already taken a dive out of the airplane and established a social enterprise. It exists already. And
Hmm.
they've piloted and they're ready to go to market because the pilot worked, or they've been working for a couple of years at what they're doing, and they're ready to scale. They're ready to go more broader or more deeply into the communities they serve. And we're looking for enterprises that are interested in a financially viable business model. So whether they're a nonprofit or for profit, they have to create a margin so that they can continue to have a mission. And what they do in terms of social impact needs to be so fundamental to their business that if you removed it from the business would cease to exist. So that's what we're looking for. And these entrepreneurs are incredibly humble because this is a leadership development program at the end of the day. We're looking for people who want to receive feedback, who want to take that feedback and implement it and improve their own leadership to make the world a better place. So they're by nature very humble, resilient, coachable people.
So would you say the majority are international that are funded, or is it a mix of domestic and
It's
sort
a
of
mix. It's
international?
a mix. And the reason for that is, it's really easy to look across the world and say, point out other people's problems.
Okay.
But the reality is we have a lot of our own issues around
Mm,
the corner, not
for
just
sure.
across the globe. And so we make it a priority to fund domestically and internationally as well.
Well, you talked a little bit about your background in healthcare, right? And obviously, we're in the midst of a bit of a turbulent time in everybody's life and in humanity's sort of historical landmark here. What do you see from the previous company that you were at? Like, what are some of the lessons learned there? Was this ever something that was foreseen there? Like, what is sort of the healthcare community right now look like when you talk to your friends and sort of family that are still in it?
Sure. Well, clearly the coronavirus has exposed and exacerbated some of the world's most intractable problems, and that
Hmm.
includes healthcare access. It also includes topics like food insecurity and
Big
housing
time.
instability,
Yeah.
inequities in education, and including healthcare. I think what we're seeing is that it simultaneously enlivened a spirit of community mindedness that gives a lot of hope for the future. And so I still keep in touch with my colleagues in healthcare, and they have a lot of faith in us and other small businesses to address some of these problems. Feed families, make masks. A lot of the efforts that our social entrepreneurs are doing are critical to keep people out of hospitals in the first place, to keep people safe and healthy. And so the main message I take away is that our work was essential before
Hmm.
coronavirus, and it'll continue to be essential beyond the crisis, and that great leaders can have an impact and make an impact a permanent part of their business strategy, whether in healthcare or any business.
How are some of the entrepreneurs that y'all have invested in, how are they doing right now? Are they just in lockdown all across the world? Are there still people that are functioning, or is there any danger of some of these businesses that have been funded, or are they going to go out of business? Like, what is sort of the global good fund community dealing with right now as far as, members?
Yeah, so it's a tough time. Our entrepreneurs, we asked our entrepreneurs at the outset, how can we help you right now?
Hmm.
And Global Good Funds model is a 12-month virtual fellowship program. So we provide executive mentoring, executive coaching, financial support, all targeted at leadership development. And what our entrepreneurs told us they need right now is cash and
Hmm.
crisis management training. And so that's what a Global Good Fund immediately did. We provided access to financial resources in the form of $270,000 that was unrestricted so that these businesses can stay in business.
Sure.
And then we're raising what we're calling a Survive and Thrive emergency fund to provide additional capital, as well as have launched a series of webinars in partnership with Motley Fool to address
Yeah.
topics like PR management, financial health during crisis, how to stay sane and healthy yourself so you can take care of other people. And what we're seeing is our entrepreneurs are emerging strongly. They're emerging really strong in the face of this crisis. So, for example, we have supported two entrepreneurs, Samir and Abby, from a company called Asusu,
Hmm.
which creates opportunities for people who are in poverty to get credit scores by paying their rent. Now,
Interesting.
during a crisis like the one we're in right now, it's really difficult to make that rent payment because people are losing their jobs, and so they've
Right.
created a fund to be able to help people pay rent. We have Veronica Scott of the Empowerment Plan, and she has an amazing company that helps mothers mostly who have dependents get out of poverty and homelessness by not only creating a permanent job opportunity, but also creating coats that turn into sleeping bags. And right now, they've also started creating masks. So the same people who created jobs for themselves by sewing coats that turn into sleeping bags are now sewing masks for people on the front line. Or Tom McDougall of 4P Foods, who has a community CSA that actually delivers the food to your home. Well, that's exactly what our society needs right now. They don't want people don't
Hmm.
want to go to the grocery store. They want food delivered at home. And so the more people are cooking at home, the more they're realizing they really want nutritious, locally sourced ingredients. And so 4P Foods, they've been able to address that issue through their business model, as well as creating an opportunity called Taco Tuesdays, where they're feeding thousands of people multiple times a week to provide healthy food and nutritious food to people who otherwise wouldn't get it through their social enterprises. So these are all examples of how our social entrepreneurs are able to serve the community through their businesses and pivot to create additional community social impact through the entrepreneurs and the businesses that they serve.
Was the initial when you sort of had that first advisory meeting, right? After not the first one, but maybe, in the early stages of the fund, has the sort of mission statement and the idea of what the fund is, has that stayed the same, or has that evolved over time once more people got involved? Once maybe you saw some successes, and I mean, as technology changes, there's different ways you can communicate, and has everything always been online, or has that been a transition? What's some of the transition of the actual
Sure.
organization from beginning to now?
Well, our mission has stayed consistent. So we continue to identify and invest in high potential leaders across the world to address society's most intractable challenges. Today being a good example of one of them, but that's been our mission before the virus and will continue to be our mission long after. Our mission stays the same and has always been and will be the same. The way we've delivered on that mission has evolved and hopefully gotten better. We're iterating every day. About 3 years into Global Good Fund's existence, I realized that people were coming to the office for me. And if I was doing my job, I should be out there talking to people, talking to entrepreneurs, talking to donors, talking to partners. I shouldn't be sitting behind a computer. I should be talking to people out in the field. And so we became virtual for the last 5 years. We've been a virtual organization. And what we're able to deliver as a virtual organization is we're able to serve people where they are, because people on the front lines are the people we're serving, the people who are making a difference in their local communities. We want to enhance that, not take that away. It's been a natural transition for Global Good Fund to stay virtual and deliver virtually in the face of COVID-19. Other examples of how we've changed is we've been more intentional about leveraging technology in terms of how we measure impact. So we made a heavy investment last year in a company called Vera Solutions, which is also a Global Good Fund fellow,
Hmm.
which uses a dashboard on top of Salesforce
Hmm.
called AMP Impact, and we're able to see real time how our entrepreneurs are doing and step in and hold them accountable in ways that are useful to them. We've also figured out how to generate income for Global Good Funds. So we're still a philanthropic nonprofit organization, and we also realize that other organizations can benefit from Global Good Fund services. So we've begun white labeling leadership development products and
Hmm.
services through Global Good Fund, and we've started partnering with corporations that want a beautifully packaged CSR program focused
Right.
on leadership development. So we've been able to serve veteran entrepreneurs. We've been able to serve entrepreneurs over 50 who are creating jobs for other people over 50 across the United States. So those are all new ways that we've been able to deliver on our mission to invest in high potential leaders addressing the greatest challenges of our time.
Is one of the revenue models, does the fund gain equity in the companies that it invest in? Does it work that way?
No, Global Good Fund is a purely philanthropic 501(c)(3) nonprofit organization. But I am glad you asked that question, because our board members asked us at the beginning, what will it look like if Global Good Fund succeeds? I should say, what will it look like when Global Good Fund succeeds?
Hmm.
And I said, we will not only deliver outsized social impact, but we'll also support financially viable businesses. There doesn't need to be a separation between doing well and doing good. These businesses can be profitable and deliver social impact in a positive way. And so what we started to see was that because Global Good Fund tracks these entrepreneurs quarter over quarter in terms of their leadership development, enterprise growth, and social impact, we know which ones are doing well. And so venture capitalists or VCs would come to us, and we would have these entrepreneurs on a silver platter that we
Right.
we had
Right.
invested all this philanthropic capital in, and took 6 months of due diligence to choose them in the first place. We supported them for a year. We de-risked them. We provided philanthropic capital. We mentored them, and then VCs would get to invest in them. And so that didn't feel right. So we created a sister company called the Global Impact Fund, which is a for-profit VC fund
Yes.
that it takes equity in companies, some of which come out of the Global Good Fund. And so it's not for all of the entrepreneurs, but every entrepreneur will be considered. And if it's a good fit for the investors, the number one goal of the fund, of the Global Impact Fund, is to make money. And we only do that by investing exclusively in companies for the world. So the Global Good Fund as a nonprofit focuses on leadership development. And when we do our jobs right, those entrepreneurs need access to capital. And the
Gotcha.
Global Impact Fund plays a small role in that, along with other companies that take financial equity in these businesses. And to date, these entrepreneurs have raised over $70 million for their company.
Wow. I love that model. That's a great model. I wish more. I think that's to me that's sort of the future of organizations, especially organizations that incubate leaders or entrepreneurs. I don't think I think we need to get out of this system of it's bad to make money doing good. I think that's for so long it's been this something that just is not accepted, so to speak.
Right,
It's such
right.
a weird thing where we accept and will buy from companies that really don't do good for workers' rights or the environment or
Mhm.
humanity in general, yet we give them our money. And but when companies want to do good and make the same money, it's vilified in a way that's a bit odd and just kind of head scratching a little bit. So I think we're coming out of that era of like, look, I think you should be rewarded by doing good. Like, if it's money that is the reward, then so be it. Right. But I mean, I think more and more now, I think people are realizing that doing good and making money should be a very powerful thing and accepted and, actually put up on a pedestal and held accountable for sure, obviously. Right.
I
But
agree.
but it should be something that our society accepts rather than doesn't accept.
I agree. I mean, we have an amazing opportunity to rebuild our communities and our economies to be stronger and more equitable. And business leaders and entrepreneurs need to be part of that solution. And that really starts with not only making money, having a margin so that you can afford to have a mission,
Mhm.
and in addition, making an impact beyond the bottom line. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with making money in just ways. That's the ideal. And if we can all be part of addressing business problems as part of the business community, we'll make the world a better place, and we'll make social impact a permanent part of business strategy.
I wanted to talk a little bit about your time at Georgetown. Are you still teaching or doing courses there, or is that's sort of something you've done in the past?
Yeah, I just ended teaching. I taught at Georgetown, and then most recently I was teaching at George Washington University. And I've been spending some time trying to adapt curricula globally as well. So I'm bopping around a little bit in different teaching settings these days.
Yeah, yeah. I ask because it's always interesting to hear what the heartbeat of sort of younger people is, right? Like what sort of their mentality? How do they look at solving problems? How do they look at business? Do they share the same vision? Do you see more social entrepreneurs coming out of universities now, or do you see more and more entrepreneurs? And it's to me it's different, right? There's a
Yeah.
difference between it. It's why they're labeled two separate things. Do you see more social entrepreneurs coming out of universities than maybe in the past?
We definitely see more young people more young people who believe that doing good is fundamentally part of their lives, both professionally and personally, and that they put those two things together. And so when we started Global Good Fund, 8 years ago, there was a lot of focus on nonprofit organizations as social impact organizations.
Mm-hmm.
And today we've migrated. We see a lot more for-profit organizations and companies that are committed to having a business model that's not only profitable but positively impacting the world. And I think a large part of that is young people. I think young people are also rubbing off on other generations. I mean, the executive leadership of large global corporations and family-owned businesses understand that if they want to identify and retain talent
Mm-hmm.
within their companies, they need to be addressing issues that cater to young employees, and young people care about making a difference in the world. So we're seeing a lot of interest in impact investing, in social entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship in America is glorified, and it's really hard. And so if you're going to do something so hard, I think what we're seeing is, why not make that not only challenging, but something that does good for the world and can be profitable. And so that seems to be a theme coming out of businesses and emerging from people graduating from school these days.
And I think it's also a huge advantage now that there are impact investing sort of firms, right? Or, there's global good funds. There's, around the world, globally, domestically, there's more investors actually willing to put capital up for companies that have impact, right? Which has never sort of really been the case. It's always been like, VCs look at something, oh, well, if this is not going to be, a $500 million company, like, then why are we doing it, right? I think it's refreshing to see all this capital come into the social entrepreneurship space, because that's what historically has been needed, and is still needed, frankly, right? I mean,
right.
I have entrepreneurs reach out to me all the time. They're thinking about raising, and they don't necessarily know how to do it. And they don't want to get money from, to be frank, just the wrong person, right? Because that can absolutely just be more devastating than positive if you
Yes.
have equity partners that are, not aligned, or just they just don't have the same sort of mentality or understand the social impact space, which is a little bit rare to find. So that's why it's really good to see Global Good Fund. I mean, there's all kind of these sort of impact investing platforms out there now that these
Yes.
social entrepreneurs can go to, and it's great.
Yes. And, there are a lot of people talking about impact investing, and there are people moving money. But I think we have a long way to go in terms of supporting underrepresented communities, in terms of moving money to truly emerging social businesses that are frontline communities. A lot of this is still a networking game. And Global Good Fund is not the only player in town, thankfully. There are a lot of other great social enterprises who are trying to support the little guys and women. But I think there's a lot of interest, and there's still a ton of work to be done getting the money and the resources and the human capital support into the hands of social entrepreneurs who might not have previously been considered, might have not been part of that privileged group to get access to money. And so I think there's still a ton of work to be done, and it's a wonderful thing that there's so much interest in this topic.
What's the application process like? Is it like a pitch deck, right? Is it the idea already needs to be sort of validated in the market, or is can it just be simply an idea in a pitch deck, and that can get you through to the Global Good Fund? Or is there, I guess it could come in different ways, right? But is there sort of a boilerplate application process of, you have to be in the market for 2 years, you have to have this revenue, things like that?
So Global Good Fund typically looks at social enterprises and leaders running them that are 2 to 5 years in. And we typically look at entrepreneurs who are under 40. We break our own rules sometimes when there's an amazing exception, but that's generally what we're looking for. And we have a filtered approach. So the first thing we do, we don't want to waste anyone's time. And so we have 10 questions that we ask just to make sure that people fit the area for what we're looking for. That can take 10 minutes just to fill out that application. And then as we get farther along, we ask for answers to questions. We ask for video interviews. We ask for footage so that we can see, we're trying to make sure this person has the hunger in the belly and the light in the eye to get through the challenges of being a social entrepreneur. Your grammar doesn't need to be perfect. Your pitch deck doesn't need to be perfect, but you have to have that fire that you're going to keep getting up when the world keeps pushing you down, and you're going to be unreasonable in the face of these great challenges of our time. And so that's what we're evaluating for. And so we have a multi-staged approach that is trying to be respectful of people's time. Global Good Fund gets about 2,500 applications for 12 fellowship positions a year. Wow. And so we're really looking for, there are more entrepreneurs than we can possibly support every year. And so we've created additional programs to be able to support some of those entrepreneurs. And that's why we've brought on partners to create tracks that are specific to environmental social entrepreneurship. We just launched this year a women's entrepreneurship program. So we're constantly looking for ways to support more social entrepreneurs, but it's a very selective process. And I guess the main message is that there's so many incredibly talented young people across the world who are using entrepreneurship for good. And if we can partner with more organizations to support more of these entrepreneurs, the world will be a better place.
How many alumni do you guys currently have now?
So between our programs, we're looking at about 200 alumni all over the world.
Wow. Is there any in Haiti at all? Where you so I know
Yeah.
you're gonna bring it back there for a second.
Yes. We did a special program where the funder actually identified the entrepreneurs for us to support, and we supported them with mentoring and financial support through a group called Community Coalition for Haiti. And that was a really important project to be able to support local entrepreneurs. And we're excited to be able to make a difference at the local level.
Is there a certain parts of the world that you see have really sort of been having innovative sort of entrepreneurs come out more than other parts of the world?
Great ideas are happening all over the world, but the platform to bring those ideas to life is not evenly spread.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
In Africa, we're seeing an explosion
Yeah.
of opportunity and talent. So we get a lot of applications from Africa, and it's somewhat concentrated in different parts of Africa, but the continent at large has a lot of amazing social entrepreneurs, and the potential in Africa is just enormous.
Yep.
We also get a lot of applications from Asia and Latin America. And I think you're seeing that in developing countries and places in the world where there's stable political structures and a lot of young people that are, sometimes the unemployment rates are high, you're seeing young people taking the world into their own hands and saying, I can't wait at the bus stop for someone to pick me up and deliver a job. I need to create my own opportunities. I'm going to do that in a way that helps other people. So that's been really inspiring to witness firsthand, and to see that with all the education that is happening in these places, the economics aren't in favor of the past type of corporate jobs that might have existed. And so people are going out on their own and creating social enterprises.
I know we touched on it a little bit earlier, a few of them, but do you want to talk about a little bit, a couple more maybe, of the companies that have come through the fund that, have been super inspirational that you want to sort of touch on and give a little highlight to? Because I mean, I'm sure there's some, you already named a few incredible companies, but I'm sure there's dozens of more. Is there some that really, really stick out?
Sure. So one that's top of mind right now is called Soap Pen, and they exist to make hand washing fun and colorful for kids. So this is a company where the founder was born in New Delhi, India, and now lives in New York City. And he previously worked as a furniture designer, and then created this pen with her co-founder that makes it fun for kids to color on their hands, and then it turns into soap. And so that's a great one, especially.
Yeah.
There's another social enterprise locally to DC called Dog Tag Bakery, which exists it's a living business school basically for transitioning veterans, and connects with service-connected disabilities and military spouses and caregivers. And so it teaches leadership development training, nonprofit management, higher education. That's the entrepreneur's background. And then she's developed programs that help these military spouses and veterans themselves be stable, not go into homelessness, and get job opportunities by having these skill sets that they learn at the bakery, so that they can have a flourishing career thereafter. That's a pretty exciting one as well.
That's great. No, the hand washing one is amazing, and I think anything to do with veterans has also been a very undervalued sector of society. Really, it's really been bizarre that there's so many veterans that are unable to get consistent jobs when sort of they come out of their service. It's pretty odd because they just have so many skills that it's weird that there's so many sort of unemployed veterans, and then they sort of end up going back into service because they can't find something they're passionate about in normal life.
Yeah, we're finding veterans that have amazing passion and skill sets, and the transition from military life to civilian life is challenging. And we have a great partner in Smithfield Foods that said, we want to take it upon ourselves to create opportunities for veterans to help themselves. And so sort of rather than giving a handout, let's give a hand up. And the military folks that we've been privileged to serve have completely run with that. And so they've created businesses from healthy condiment companies to companies that hire other veterans to companies that provide healthcare supply chain management. I mean, it's all across the map. And these are companies that they're run by veterans and they also hire veterans. And so it's been a real honor to serve the people who serve our country.
Pretty amazing. So I'll end on this, and it's sort of a journey question as well. We started with that. We'll end with that. Is almost 10 years now. If you want to take a deep breath and believe
Yes.
it.
Wow.
I guess what are some of the lessons learned, right? And what are some of the things that if you were sitting in front of a class of 23-year-olds about to graduate from a university or any type of college, what is sort of the message that you're giving them as they sort of embark on hopefully their social entrepreneurship journey? What are some of the high level things that you would tell them not to do from the mistakes maybe you made, but some of also the things that have really worked out and sort of the successful tips that you can give them?
Sure. So a few lessons I've learned along the way. I learned to speak when I have a seat at the table. When I originally was invited to meetings in a corporate environment, I kept quiet and I listened. And now I learned to make it a priority that I need to add value in meetings by speaking at least once when I'm invited. I come to a meeting in the first place. I need to
Yeah.
And so I remind other professionals, especially young women, that they're present for a reason, and it's important to share your voices. Another lesson I learned is to invest in myself. Invest in yourself. I invest in myself, and don't expect anyone else to invest in you unless you first invest in yourself. And that can look like time, that can look like doing your homework, that can look like spending money on training for yourself. I think the other main takeaway I've had is that it's really important to invest in leaders that reflect the community. The most practical innovations often stem from people who are on the front line, who understand firsthand their community's most pressing challenges and opportunities. And so investing in leaders that reflect the community not only makes business sense, but is the right thing to do. And then lastly, I'd share that there are moments where you're trying to create something out of nothing. And a lot of those times involve getting rejected. And the most important lesson I've learned there is to stand up and keep going.
But yeah, I mean, every single point you just mentioned is so spot on. I mean, I think it's, and being from pointing out from a woman's perspective, I think it's invaluable of what you touched on. And it's amazing to see the inspiring women, just domestically doing incredible things. And I know there's, internationally, there's just amazing women that face even more obstacles, creating some amazing companies and ideas and organizations. It's a massive, massive benefit to have this escalation of female entrepreneurs, especially in the social impact sector. It's an amazing point that you made. So I appreciate that. The last thing is how many, I promise this will be the last one. How much funding has been dispersed over, the last nearly decade or so to applicants that have come through the fund?
We've raised about $10 million to date. And the vast majority of our budget goes to supporting entrepreneurs directly. And so whether it's through the program management of supporting the entrepreneurs with mentoring and coaching, or providing impact measurement and accountability systems, or providing direct funding, the vast majority of that money goes to entrepreneurs themselves. I think one of the main challenges for me as a leader of a nonprofit is it's really important for me to take care of my people, and that means our team.
Right.
And there's critique for spending money on ourselves. And I think one of the lessons I've learned there is that if you don't have a healthy team, you can't have a healthy community. And so we live by investing in ourselves so we can invest in other people. And so I'm pleased to say we run an organization that provides health benefits and retirement savings and fair salaries. But at the end of the day, we exist to fulfill a mission. And that's where the majority of our money goes.
Amazing, Carrie. Thank you so much. I'm fascinated about obviously social entrepreneurship, but also really fascinated with impact investing because that to me is the catalyst of whether the movement succeeds or not, because we need traditional capital to be sort of more involved, so to speak, in
Yes.
the sort of rise of sort of business actually solving global issues at its sort of foundational level rather than just solving problems in the business world. I think we could find ways to solve businesses in the human world, right? In the community and things like that at a very base level. If we can find a way to solve poverty, education, healthcare, these things will create even more and more users and consumers for other businesses, in that traditional realm. And so I'm glad to see more and more sort of investors realizing that the more people are lifted out of sort of poverty or are educated at a high level, that is just such a benefit for the world economy, not even just the domestic economy, but international economy. That is the way that we solve every single issue that we have right now, and it's amazing to watch. It's amazing to see. So thank you so much for everything that you're doing and your team and the whole impact investing community. We need more of that. So I appreciate you taking the time. I know it's a crazy time right now for everybody. So
Well, Grant, thank you so much for hosting me, and it's been such a pleasure to share about the Global Good Fund.